Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again, a simple man diagnosed with MPD, talking about my disorder and trying to give you guys the facts on narcissistic personality disorder and tell you what goes on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you don't say mean things, please. Keep in mind I'm no clinician, so take that as you will. So yesterday I posted a video regarding a very good book called Good Old Neon that I thought was a really good example of how people like me think, right? And I got a comment from my main dude, Carl Rupert, well, one of my main dudes, and he pointed out how it was a very, almost a self-sacrificing thing to immediately have a reaction of going on to my YouTube, posting it there, and basically not using it to inspire new ideas without telling other people. And I thought about this because my knee-jerk reaction was, I was probably just doing it so that people would view me as not narcissistic, right? Because usually when I'm being humble or kind, it's usually for that ends. But I started thinking about it and I was like, no, that was not it at all. Why the fuck did I do that? I'm so used to like the answer to literally anything, like why did a narcissist do this? It's like fucking self-esteem regulation, that's it. So it took me really off guard when I couldn't recognize why I did this. Because it wasn't for self-esteem regulation. It like was such an automatic response. I wasn't even considering anything like that. And it made me realize that, it was, I think, the one, like, I'm like kind of freaking out because I'm like, oh man, maybe I've been wrong about self-esteem regulation being the most important facet of this disorder, because I think there's another opposite facet, well, almost opposite facet of it. Opposite means, that is a much more, like, which is underneath that self-esteem regulation, right? And I think that's wanting to be seen and actually genuinely known. You know, I feel fake and like I'm performing all the time. And for most of my life, I've just felt misunderstood, underestimated, like people really couldn't enter my headspace. And, you know, that's ostensibly true for basically all people, right? We can't fully understand anybody. But also, I am sorry, Countess Karen of dog training in Mexico. I am drinking McDonald's coffee again. But anyways, so yeah, like being seen is something I deeply, deeply desire, but I'm also terrified of. Not just because of vulnerability, because that's horrifying, and because that they'll leave me if they do see the real me, but also at the same time, it's like that last gap between like me and my self-hate. So it's a very contradictory thing. I desperately want to be seen and understood, but at the same time, if I am seen, then a lot of bad shit happens. And that's something I don't want to risk. I mean, there is the idea of, oh, somebody did understand me, would I feel a need to want to be special? Hard to say no to that, if I'm being honest, but I don't know. It's weird. But the more I thought about it, again, like, ostensibly, I was known by people. I am known by people. I have a personality. I would say most of you know me. You guys can probably understand me to some degree. Can't enter my personal experience completely, but effectively we are all still just behaviors. I know you guys say that my roommate isn't trying to ruin my life, but holy shit, today's bad. Today's fucking bad. Jesus Christ. Anyways, but ultimately we all are just behaviors that are observable by people and get a pretty good idea of how people work pretty easily by watching them. I feel like I'm not a hard person to understand. Everything I do is just for self-esteem regulation and a desperation to get that love I didn't get as a kid. Obviously, the ways I go about it aren't always the most adaptive, but you know. And the more I think about it, though, the more I kind of realize how just silly it is, the way that I exist. Just like, I have all these needs that I go about in maladaptive ways that actively make my life worse and get me further away from those needs. But I don't stop. I guess that's why it's a personality disorder, right? That's why it's a disorder in general. Because it's constantly getting in the way of me, but I still do it anyway with the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you'll get a different result. He has to have a fucking timer 4 fucking times. Oh my fucking God. Anyways, okay, so, but even more so, I spend all my time being vulnerable here and like trying to get people to understand me, because it enhances my uniqueness. And the greatest irony of me being vulnerable and not doing these narcissistic things for that end is that it's probably the most narcissistic trait I have. Based, not bragging, but like, not exaggerating either, but showing off my great suffering. It's literally just a martyrdom that's basically disguised as me being a deep and profound person. And it's so ironic. And the more I think about it, I see why. And like that suffering is very genuine for me, right? I genuinely believe very few people suffer like me because it is a terrible disease. But obviously it's dramatized, I guess, from the outside perspective. And this fixation on my suffering. I guess I can see how people say, vulnerable narcissists and like their particular, like need to be seen as like great sufferers and stuff like that. I honestly think like just like looking back at my life, and I had this fucking obsession with being understood and feeling like nobody cared or knew me. And to some degree, it's kind of true. But on the other hand, again, they did know me. I think more accurately now, it's the only person who didn't know me was myself, or is myself. I feel like I'm just kind of like this mirage that whenever I feel like I get close to like touching it and knowing what the truth was, it shifts and like dissipates. And I turn into something else completely. And I have to restart this process of figuring myself out. It's very, oh my fucking God. And I think part of it is that my suffering is one of the only things that does feel real. But I actively work against myself from absolving that because there is a uniqueness in my suffering. At least at some level, I think. Because there's been a lot of times that I don't want to be better. I like actively take pride in being unhinged sometimes. Often, honestly. It's fun being unhinged. It's cool. It's edgy and cool. I'm an alcoholic and smoke cigarettes. I'm cool as fuck. It's weird. It really is. And the more I think about it, the more kind of, not bleak it seems, but it's just like, it feels so redundant. Everything about my personality feels redundant at this point. And all these maladaptive coping mechanisms just reinforce each other. That makes it seem like recovery is a genuinely impossible thing because of my conflicting desires and ways of dealing with it. I see why the prognosis is so bad for us now. And again, I do think, like, I made a video a long time ago on Dostoevsky's unfinished work, The Life of a Great Sinner. And it was effectively a narcissistic person who finally achieved his specialness in his mind by being the most virtuous and humble person. And I do honestly think that is probably the best way to go about my recovery. I hope, like, I am the most healthy person, right? I'm the best narcissist. It's hard to say. It really is. I don't think that, Jesus, I'm sorry. I don't think that I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. I really don't think that there is any other way to really go about recovery. According to that one study I quote sometimes about the remission rates, the things that just do not go away is, well, if you lack empathy, that's a stable trait, but also the need for admiration. And thinking that we're special actually went up after a treatment period, which is hilarious. Well, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to have this sense of self that like I am proud of and that I can genuinely love. I'm always going to be needing people's reassurances in some form or another. Yeah. And I was just so eager to like share that story because I was like, yes, people will understand me. People will understand me. They'll understand how uniquely terrible my life is, how uniquely I suffer. It was really a cherry on top that the dude committed suicide at the end of the, well, not at the end of the story, but like he was speaking beyond the grave. Interestingly enough, I found out after, I was literally about to email the writer that wrote that story because I was like, oh my God, this guy. But he killed himself too, which is bleak. It feels like every story about a narcissistic character who like, and it's like an accurate portrayal, ends up fucking killing themselves. I won't lie, like I can see why, but you know, I won't, or at least I'll try not to. It's sad. I'm looking back on my life just seeing like all these people who ostensibly did understand me and did care about me and how little I trusted it and how willing I was to throw it away. I think back to like, because like I always complained about in high school that nobody cared that like I was being abused and shit, right? But I remember like my buddy's mom, who, I fucked this dude over, but whatever. My buddy's mom, like I remember her calling me and saying how like if I wanted to go to college locally, I could stay with her so to save money, and yeah, and like that, like obviously I'd pay rent and shit, but like just to get me out of my house and stuff like that. And I thought she was mocking me. I didn't want to be a charity case. I didn't want anybody's pity. But looking back on it, it's easy to see that like I was projecting a little bit. I was like, this person can't feel good about themselves by giving me charity. What do I look like? It's funny looking back on my life, honestly. One of my favorite lyrics from a song is, "I'm the gap between a tragedy and comedy, and nothing has ever rang truer in my life." I am. Fuck. I'm thinking about my exes now, too. Some people were asking what things that they said about me. Just like, I'm shitty, how I'm a void, how they gave me all the love that they could, but it was never enough for me and I could never trust it. Because they did try to love me. And they did, and again, they did to some level understand me. They knew how I operated and they knew how I worked. I openly admitted to one of them that I was just a facade, just a shell. I'm kind of understanding now why people are like use the term narcissistic abuse. I still don't agree with the term, but I'm understanding it a little bit better now because just the way I go about manipulation, it is always so subtle. I never lie, and I lie all the time, but I mean I never get into a lie that I can't get out of. If I lie, like I know 100% and nobody else can. The only time that I've been caught in lies is when I like am basically bragging about it. It's been rare though. It's funny, like all my friends for years always said I was such a bad liar. So no, the only times I get caught in those lies is when I want myself to. When I'm hoping desperately someone's going to peel back those layers to my psyche and finally see who I really am. I am literally shaking with rage. Oh my fucking God. How many times can somebody interrupt me? How many? I deserve better than this. Anyways. Fuck, I forget what I was saying. But yeah. Basically, yeah, caught in a prison of my own self-absorption. It's my fault, basically. It fucking sucks. It really does. And holding people to these unrealistic expectations to pry me from my prison of my own self-absorption and then be perfectly attuned to my needs and then getting so frustrated when they aren't because I don't tell them. I don't tell them what I need. I don't tell them what I want because I'm not even sure I know. It's a weird thing. It really is. I wish there was like DBT for fucking being vulnerable. Oh, well, yeah. Not much else to say on that topic. In case you can't tell, I've been in a rough place lately. I just stress about things. It'll be fine soon, though. Got some good opportunities coming up. But yeah. Hope y'all enjoyed. Hope this was insightful. Take your fucking meds, please. Or don't. I'm not your dad.